It's June 11th, 2024, and you're listening to the Beer Temple podcast.
Remember, this is what we wanted. Remember, this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again. Remember, this is what we wanted. Remember, this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again.
Hello and welcome to the Beer Temple podcast. I am your sole host, Chris Quinn, coming to you from the Beer Temple here in Chicago, Illinois. Thanks to the Fade Master for that beautiful fade in. I'm sure you guys could already tell that Serge was in the house, but that's it. Just he and I from the standard side of things. Mike is taking the week off to go celebrate some familial occasions. So we hope him all the best, and we'll see him next week. But that's all right. It's we still got a good show lined up. We got an all-time great guest here, and I'm looking forward to it. So let me just get it out of the way quickly. Thanks to Lumpen Radio for having us on again, and to everyone who listens to us on 105.5 FM, WLPN, Lumpen Radio, and all the folks over there. Thank you so much, and thanks to everyone who listens to us not only on the airwaves, but also via the podcast. We appreciate it, and we appreciate the letters and the reviews and stuff like that you guys have been sending to us lately. So with that said, we can get right into it and introduce our guest for this week, a long-time, many-time guest from Revolution Brewing for one, but kind of all over the internet at this point. Doug Veliky, what's up, man? How are you?
Hey, Chris. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, we've never had a one-on-one show before.
No, I just posted on Instagram I was going one-on-one with the great one.
Yeah, right. Cool. You sent that. You put that on your local account, I hope.
Yes.
Okay. Good. Did you do a solo show with Mike before?
Yeah, I did a beer that's changed my life.
Yes. Okay. I've only done a few one-on-one shows, so he's much more. I think, he's much more practiced at doing that than me. So you have to hold my hand a little bit with this one. So
I'm not used to having an hour to fill.
Right. Yeah, we'll see. An hour. Try.
I meant each.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, why don't we start out the classic way with seeing what you've been up to, and then we'll see if there's any beers that either of us have had lately that have been of note.
Yeah, I've been super busy. All good stuff. At Rev, we have just an insane amount going on. It's been hard to manage it all, if I'm being honest. But we just announced yesterday that we are for the first time, the official beer of Pitchfork. Oh. So big first time ever entering the music fest space. And
what does that mean to be the official beer? Or
so we'll be the only beer served at the fest, 3-day festival. About 60,000 people come in from all around the country, but of course heavy Midwest, and it's a long time kind of iconic festival built in Chicago down in Union Park. So this was Josh's dream. It was his kind of number one thing he always kind of wanted to be able to do someday. Yeah, sorry, Josh Deeth, our founder. When he told me that, I was like, let's go get it, and figured it out and got to go public with the news yesterday. So it came together pretty quickly, over the last couple months, and so it's going to happen quick and then be done. We're going to get to do it again next year too.
Nice.
So we have a lot to learn this first year of first ever music fest of this kind of scale for us. So we part of it involves a big activation space that we get, but it requires having a an actual bar, so we had to order one of those shipping container bars, and then you build you deck it out, you build a sign on it. So it's a big investment, but it's also this thing you get to use for a lot of other things, and it's
So you're going to have a shipping container now.
Yeah, exactly.
That's cool.
So that's
and you can just truck it around to places then.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, you can't we don't have the truck, you just throw it on. It's kind of one of the things that you'd haul a dumpster on, but yeah, you hire a company and they'll move it wherever it needs to be.
Well, that's cool.
So that's a big one. We announced our Deepwood Series lineup today to the public. We offer the chance to kind of buy the whole ticket. So we kind of got those sales going because we do this summer release where our barrel age season starts in July. So that just happened this week, and then
what are they? What's the lineup?
The big one is VSOJ, and so we've only released VSOJ in a packaged format twice before. Seems like it's been around forever, but this is only the third batch of it, so it was a big deal to bring back, and that's one of these summer releases. Then we're going to do a cherry version of it that we've done on draft before and has always been a big hit. So we're going to do a cherry VSOJ, and then coconut Deeth is our summer releases. We always like to put some fun summer themed, even though it's still a big barrel aged stout, something with some kind of tie to summer in the July month. And we always get a huge turnout at that release, I think, because there's just nothing else going on for the people that are into barrel aged beers. There's just nothing else happening in July. It's kind of the only show in town. So that's usually one of our top one or two best attended releases is the July one. Believe it or not. I think it's just because there's so many good ones to go to in October, November that they can get a little bit more lost. So that's two of the things we have going on. We have this new partnership with the WNBA team, the Chicago Sky. I shouldn't say the WNBA, the local team, Chicago Sky. And that's been a lot of fun. We entered this deal with the team well before, everybody was talking about them. So
you liked them before they were cool.
Exactly. Slightly, about 6 months before now. So they approached us, and it was an exciting opportunity to do something different. And then the NCAA...
And what's the sponsorship there? Are you the official beer of the...
We are the official craft beer. There is no official beer, but it's technically in the contract, the official craft beer. But we have Cold Time and Anti-Hero are sold at the arena. Every timeout in the game is branded on the scoreboard with this fun animation, the Cold Timeout, because our new premium lager is called Cold Time. So we had fun with the name and tie into timeout. So every 30 or 60 second timeout, they do this fun animation on the board, and the guy on the PA says, it's a timeout, so that means it's time for a cold timeout. Head out to concessions, and Then we do a hero race, if anyone's ever seen the Dunkin' Donuts race at the United Center, and pretty much every team has one of those races where you pick a character and then they go run through the city or something like that. We have a hero race that happens in games, just like a fun,
so all the stuff.
Yeah, all the things.
All the things. Yeah. Well, that's cool. Congrats on all that stuff.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, you're going to be busy going to a lot of stuff this summer. Yeah. A lot of games. And it's interesting. So Pitchfork, it's an actual, because in my mind, I've always wondered, what's it mean to be the official suntan lotion of the U.S. Olympic team, or, what does that mean? But I guess for beer at an event where they sell a beer, it's, so you guys are going to be somewhat then exclusive at Pitchfork.
Yeah, there'll be other alcohol products, but we'll be the only beer. There'll be White Claw and then all these hard liquors that I'm not super familiar with.
Is something like that, other than just being a feather in Josh's cap or something that he's always wanted to do, which has meaning? Is it seen as a flex? Is it a marketing opportunity or a sales opportunity?
It's a marketing opportunity.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't make anywhere near what you pay to be there back in the sales of beer. You get some of it. But anything with a sports team, any of those sponsorships, you're getting a fraction of it back.
Got it.
I couldn't tell you a number. I could tell you somewhere in the, it's good to just have in your head 20%, something like that is what you might get back in beer sales. But it's all about the people you get to impact, the people who get to associate this awesome experience. Something like Pitchfork is something people travel in for, or it's one of the biggest things they do of the year. And if you're the beer they're drinking and they're having an awesome time and they drink your beer, the thought is that they're going to then want to, when they have a cookout in their backyard, they're going to want to pick up that same beer because they have that kind of association with it, with this awesome fest they went to. That's one of many things, but that's kind of like the basic conversion that you're hoping for, of like building fans. And with us having this new premium lager Cold Time, we'd love to, introduce that to younger fans, and that the Pitchfork is a very young demographic, and IPAs aren't necessarily. We'll certainly have Antahira there as well, but Cold Time's the beer that we're hoping to introduce to a lot of new people who would have never maybe seen it or tried it otherwise, see it for the first time, and then...
Yeah. I was thinking, that's probably the opportunity there, is to introduce something new, whether it's an entirely new brand or just, something, a new product from an existing company that they're already aware of. Because, the last time that I can really distinctly remember something like that was at the Chicago NASCAR race, because you're in a very closed community when you go into the inner circle there, or just the whole thing, and they had very few alcoholic options. Tons and tons and tons of beer, of you can buy as much as you want, but only a few. I think there was 2 or 3 beers total. One, of course, is going to be Busch Light, because that is what people want. And I was, my wife kind of scoffed at me and got something that I had never heard of, because it must have been a release probably from Anheuser-Busch. It was called Monaco. I guess Monaco, for maybe they were trying to tie it in because of the Monaco Grand Prix or whatever. It was a hard seltzer of some kind.
I've seen that can before. I've never had
First time I'd ever seen it, but it got a lot of people trying Monaco for the first time, including my wife, because she's like, I'm getting Busch Light. If I'm at a NASCAR, I'd never been to a NASCAR race. I was like, if I'm going to be in NASCAR, I am getting, when in Rome, drink Busch. There's a time and a place for almost any beer.
Yeah.
And that is the time.
You already had the fluorescent orange hat on,
exactly.
So you might as well get the right beer.
I was ready to go. And it had the mullet built into it, so nobody knew I was an imposter, And my wife was like, no, I'm getting this Monaco. And I was like, all right, if you want something that tastes like that on a 90-degree day, that's fine. Halfway through, she was already wanting sips of my beer, and I was like, nope, enjoy that. I did give her some, but I had to at first. But that said, it got her to try the beer or the seltzer, and I remember at the time thinking, that's a very good way when you have that captive audience to kind of not force them to try it, but because they have other options. But what a great way to get people to, and I'm sure there's other people who are going to loved that Monaco stuff and bought it again.
And at Pitchfork specifically, and plenty other places have that. You're talking about the NASCAR street race, they have this, some semblance of this too, where if you're at a 3-day fest, and this Union Park is not huge. It's 4 baseball diamonds, and that's what we're talking about here. But then they create this area that's an activation area for all their sponsors to set up a pretty decent size, but that's where our shipping container bars. So there's these general admission bars that are right in the normal bars where people who are watching a show and then just want to grab a beer would get a beer. But when people are there for that long of a time, they also want to take a break, go for a walk, and so that's where they create this area for you to create a place to basically take a break. So we're theming ours after kind of a Chicago patio setting, and as a place to take a break from the music and go have a beer. And that's where you have a chance to make that place cool, make it a fun place so it's not just about them seeing your beer on a menu at a normal kind of concession stand.
Yeah.
You get the chance for them to also maybe have a beer at some point that weekend at this much cooler space where the shipping container bar is kind of the centerpiece of it. But it's kind of what you create around it, what's going on there that's this is kind of fun. Let's hang out here for a half hour.
Yeah, I guess it is kind of the formula, because at that race there was a giant, multifaceted activation area. But there was other, like I think there was a Jose Cuervo or Captain Morgan or something like that was very distinctly different. And it was something that had been dropped in there 2 stories. It was a 2-story thing that they just like threw into Grant Park. And then they had other ones that were massive that I think you had to have like a special bracelet to even get into that one. But yeah, it's interesting that whole area, and when you get to the size of Rev, to even be able to do that in a 4 baseball diamond size, which is pretty darn big and way too big for most breweries. It's probably some pretty cool options that are brought up, that are made available to you. So.
It's an interesting topic all around in beer right now, is just partnerships, because partnerships can come in all shapes and sizes. Every brewery of every size here can afford to do some level of partnerships. There's smaller music festivals going on all around town. And it's just kind of I think buying into them is partially kind of accepting that maybe the growth in it being all about the beer is over, close to over.
Yeah.
Not to say that new people won't be into beer, but just in terms of like what we've seen before, and the best home for converting new people to try local beer is through being a part of something else that's also something bigger than beers, whether it's sports, music. Those are some of the biggest ones.
It's interesting. Well, it's interesting to me. I'm curious if the people listening have any interest in this, but yeah, just like 5 hours ago, we were asked, and we get asked for some lame partnerships, but I hadn't thought about it until you said people of all sizes. But there's a Lincoln Park Beer Fest that they're doing this Saturday, and they saw a promotion we're doing for Father's Day. We're giving away like tokens that you can like give to your dad or a dad in your life, and they can bring it in on Father's Day and get a free beer for it. And they're like, well, do you want to why don't you give us like everyone gets a glass when they come in. Do you want to like pop a token in there or something like that? And I was like, well, I don't have 5,000 or 3,000, I think it was, wooden nickels. But I was like, what about just like a little business card size like voucher where we could also, I was thinking, put more information on there as well. And then I started thinking, why make it only good for Father's Day? Because it's going to be the day before. Maybe make it good for a week or 2 or something like that. And yeah, I mean, it is an opportunity because you have a bunch of people who are interested enough to go to a beer fest, and maybe some of them will come here for the first time and enjoy it. So it didn't even occur to me when you were talking about Pitchfork that I was doing my own tiny little version of, or contemplate doing my own little version of it. So yeah, cool. Awesome. Even the little guys, the smallest, the most local of us. All right, so beers. What beer have you had lately that you've liked, Doug?
You didn't ask that the right way, because I'm more excited.
Yes, which is like I always say it that way. Of course, the one time I don't.
Because I've been drinking mostly Revolution lately. So I'm about to head out to California for a little more than a week. Family wedding outside of San Francisco, some Monterey, but mostly with my in-laws in Sacramento. And there's a brewery that I absolutely love there called Urban Roots. And they also have a smokehouse barbecue. And they're just one of those breweries that everything they make I just think is perfect. They were the first brewery I saw to do and we're talking a long time ago, I don't know how long, 5 years ago, doing the Czech-style beers where they have the series, where they have the number and the degree on it. Like, I know many breweries have done it since then. I don't know for a fact that they were first, but I think they might have been the first. Like, they were kind of all over that before it was cool. But they do a lot
6
of
months
different,
before it was cool.
Yeah. They do a lot of different styles really, really, really well, and do the clean West Coast IPAs that you and I bond over frequently exceptionally well. So I'm excited to check them out. I met the owner at GABF randomly. We happened to be at the same brewery at the same time, and he introduced himself to me, so I'm going to reach out to him and see if I can say hello. So that's what I'm excited about beer-wise.
All right. For me, I think I said it as right before we went on, the Sierra Nevada Summerfest glad to have it back. It went away for a year or so, but we have it on draft right now. It's a it's a pale lager. I don't know if I would quite call it a Pils or what, but it's really, really quite good. It certainly went down very fast. I'm already out of my pint that I started the podcast with just a little bit ago. So for me, I know I can be a bit of a little redundant, but yeah, surprise, surprise. Sierra Nevada makes a great beer. Although I will also say, because a beer that I have been trumpeting, and the Fade Master mentioned how good it was, is the Daisy Cutter Select, which is a beer that Half Acre made in honor of Daisy Cutter's 15-year anniversary. That is this year, and they did it with Sierra Nevada, which okay, I'm still sticking with the same, but it was brewed here. And it's a double IPA, but much more in like the West Coast ABV style, where it's like 8% is a double IPA versus like 11%, which is more of the Midwest style double IPA. But it's great. Have you had it? Have you had
I have not.
Select? You should get a little sip of it. It's really good. We had cans of it too, but those have sold out. Speaking of which, we had a mini Rothaus moment, a miniature one. So a couple of years ago, we were just like selling that stuff. We couldn't keep it in stock. We were selling like 50 cases a week for months. And I think we've sold like 70 cases of the Augustiner Helles that came in that we said, hey, this is the first time in. It's really, really fresh right now. And people have been buying it like... There's been multiple occasions where people have like bought a case, gone to their car, and then they come in and like bought like another half to full case, but while like they just turned around and decided,
it's like Elaine with the sponges in Seinfeld.
Yeah, yes.
You know just what? Just load the rest of those in.
Just put them all in. People calling as early as like or emailing how much you have left. Do I have to come in today? And we've had it for now a couple weeks, but people are going crazy for it. It's delicious. I don't know if you've had that one either, but first time in the States, and just really solid.
I want to come back to that. I want to ask about Summerfest. As you were saying that, I was like, and you were saying what it is. It's been a while since I've had a Summerfest. Huge Sierra Nevada fan, just haven't come across Summerfest in a while. Is that a genius move that they made, calling a Pilsner Summer Fest, like treating it like you would normally think that that's like an Oberon competitor, right? If you just like heard of a new beer come out that is called that, would you associate that as being like a wheat
Is
beer?
it genius? I don't know. I mean, part of me thinks that because of what you said, no, because I remember like learning that it was a lager. Like, oh, Summerfest is a lager? Oh, okay. I mean, I guess it makes sense in the age of like Oktoberfest, and this is our summer lager, maybe. I don't know why they would call it that, but I don't know. I don't know.
Like, I feel like more people would try a beer called Summerfest than Sierra Nevada Pils.
Okay.
What do you think of that?
I don't know.
I know it's tough because it has such a legacy. It's hard to just...
The thing about... No, but I hear what you're getting at. The thing about Sierra Nevada Pils, for example, is it tells the drinker what kind of beer it is. Summerfest doesn't. Oberon also doesn't. But
strategically, perhaps.
Right, but also it's had so much ramp up time, to just like soak into the zeitgeist of beer drinkers, and in the case of Oberon, just the general drinking public, certainly in Michigan. I don't know. I mean, it seems to me like it's potentially a risk, but it could pay off. Like, because think about Celebration is the same thing. If they called that like, I don't even know what you would call it. Like, it's like a malty IPA or like I don't even know what you would call. I mean, it is an IPA, but it's so outside the realm of what IPAs are now.
But I think they're smart to not call it an IPA.
Right.
I think a lot of people have gotten tired of wide audiences have gotten tired of IPA.
Right.
And it's almost best to protect that one and keep its historic audience and almost not alienate it by it being. Do they write IPA on it? Or
I know they call it
ale?
a fresh hop. It's like a fresh hop
Ale.
Ale. Is that what it is?
I think so. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah.
They might. I think they've tinkered with it too. So I think you could probably find a couple different versions of that label.
So, but the question is, did they? Is that meaningful? Did they do it on purpose all the way back in the day, or is that just kind of how they did it?
Yeah, because when they first made that,
no,
IPA,
it's fresh hop IPA, and it says it nowadays.
Well, now
anyway,
it
it says it really big.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but who knows?
I don't think it used to be.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. No, fresh hop ale is what the old one said. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. And then it went to fresh hop IPA. And then it went to fresh hop IPA. I'm just looking at some of the old versions of it. But yeah, the first one just said Celebration Ale. Boom. That's it. And then it went to fresh hop ale, fresh hop IPA, and fresh hop IPA. It is funny. I'm just looking. I just did an image search. And I can tell just from the naming and how it's changed that that's the order it went in. It's not necessarily like I don't see a timeline with the changes on it. I'm just scrolling through, and I'm like, oh, this is definitely the order this stuff went in, which is funny. Yeah, I don't. That's interesting. Like, do you have a? Is there like a strategy that you kind of go by, or that you guys at Rev go by when naming that sort of stuff? Do you like try to make sure to name it, make sure not to name it, or does it not really even to come into play?
Well, there's the brand name and the style. With the brand name, we've taken our licks sometimes from not making a name intuitive enough, or just feel the pain from not having done that, or see the benefit when you actually do. Like, I remember when we came out with Hazy Hero as just like so many other breweries who had a classic IPA, wanted to make a hazy version. I know we were one of thousands to do something just like that. But we debated for way too long over what to name that beer, whereas Hazy Hero just seemed too easy. It seemed too much of a layup, and it just seemed like uninspiring. But boy, would it have been a giant mistake had we not. And I take no credit for that.
What were some of the other names that you...
Who knows?
Right,
Northeast Hero, Juicy Hero, or just like... Or something more like thematic that was like more of just like an adventurous name that like sounded fun but doesn't tell you anything about what it is. And almost always, if this is a beer that's supposed to be out there all year round and not just be a one and done, intuitive wins 10 times out of 10. And it's kind of boring.
So Summerfest, somewhat intuitive. Like, you know that they know that, so this is meant to be drank when it's warm, right? Sunny out, But that's it. Oberon, I mean, you got to really dive in there. Then I guess you have some sun illusions and stuff like that. But, like, so I don't know. It looks like you're not sure. I guess, who knows? Yeah. All right. Well.
Beers like Summerfest, I don't know if you feel this way. It almost feels like, I wouldn't say this about Celebration, but it seems like the best thing for Summerfest is to come out and then like not come out the next year and then come out again maybe a year later when people were upset. It just seems like with those beers with that long timeline, sometimes even a seasonal beer every season is like not enough. Yeah, because that went away for a while, didn't it?
Yeah, and they've done that with a few things that have now come back. They did that with their Oktoberfest. That went away for a year or two. Summerfest. Now Kellerweiss is gone. Are they playing the long game? Are they doing like the Three Floyds, like making false scarcity type thing? I doubt it. But I'm with you because it does then like juice people's interest in it. And if you have enough, hits in your playbook that you can do that with, because they have so many that they could go back. I mean, I'm still waiting for, Ruthless Rye to come back, or Tumblr, I think it was called, their Automail. They have so many that they could do this with. I
think you have to pass, even with a seasonal beer like these, you have to let like an entire season go by without doing it, at least one with some of these. I just think they come back, people buy them once, and they don't buy them again. So it's just like you need.
So even once a year now is too often.
I think so.
Yeah, I could see that being right. And then there's other beers. Like, I think it was brilliant when Half Acre several years ago started doing like the half-year beers, because they had like, what was it, like Vallejo and Gone Away, which I forget that one because it's had like 4 different names. They were both year-round, and then they went to like, they were the same, like one was the winter and one was the summer kind of thing.
Same barcode. Usually.
Yeah. I thought it was great because it was just enough to be, oh, good, I get that again, and also, and I better get it now because it won't be around. Like that's it's the positive side and like the joyous side of that, where the Pokemonification is where I feel like you go too far, where it's like, oh, you have 2 new beers every week. I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care. They're not. Yeah, they don't feel like thought through enough for me, or I can't put the mental energy into looking at and tasting them all, so then I can remember if it ever comes back again, which ones I care about.
Yeah, we are at a point. We, as in Revolution, and I think every brewery that's been around 5 or more years is in the same position where you really, almost nobody can get away with any more SKUs. And get away with doesn't mean like tricking retailers into taking more. It just means like, can your sales team even talk about all of these? Is there just, does it make any sense to have any more? Usually, no. You've almost everybody's kind of stretched that to the point that it makes sense. Maybe you're pulling back, but the point being, when you have something new that you want to do, you got to find the weakest link and take it away, or find other things you could do. One example of this is sours haven't been selling as well as they were just like 2 years ago. Like there was when hard seltzer was flying high, so were kettle sours, fruited kettle sours. They were doing great. We still sell plenty of them, but we stretched that to the point where we had 4 different year-round SKUs. And they warrant
its own seasonal line, essentially.
They still warrant having some, but not 4. So we're taking 2 of ours, Freedom of Speech and Freedom Lemonade, and doing exactly what you were pointing out with Half Acres, and saying these are both great beers that people like. There's no great sour for the winter, but Freedom of Speech is just kind of like our hallmark one. It's like a good play on the name, tie into the name Revolution, Freedom of Speech. And so we're making that one be the one in the colder months, and then the lemonade, obviously, people really only want in the summer months anyway. So we're making that one beer, but half the year it's this, half the year it's that.
And you're cutting the other 2.
Yeah.
And what you could do, I guess, if you want to use your own advice, is then just rotate them every other year. You could have it come and go, or do whatever you wanted.
But the idea is, like, you want something new, you got to free up some space, and so you look for ways to rationalize or make a cut somewhere else. And so that's something you pretty much like twice a year have to be like dialing those things in.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's probably a lot of the reason that Sierra Nevada has killed off a lot of these older brands, because they're like, listen, we can't just have more SKUs. And Hazy Little Thing, which we'll get to in a little bit, has been doing great. So we're going to do line extension on Hazy Little Thing, and, well, something's got to give. We're not just going to have our own, just start duplicating brands, and just, we're not Frito-Lay. We can't just take over a shelf,
The term, if you're not growing, you're dying, can apply to just an individual brand in your portfolio. Nothing is just nice and steady. Everything's either gaining momentum or losing momentum. And so that's what I mean. Like if a new Sierra throwback comes back, that's going to have a nice burst of energy right out of the gate. And then it has nowhere to go but down after that. It's just like it's never going to be a top 5 thing that their sales team is talking about. They're always going to have bigger hitters than Ruthless Rye coming back, no matter how much some people love it. And so it's just going to get that burst of one-time sales. It's going to have people that'll still buy it, but it's going to be a declining number. And so it's just like immediately on a track to need to be replaced. And so you just you can keep bringing those out. You just constantly have to play this replacement game. And the deeper lineup you have, the better. That's why it's like it's really hard to start out now and be the kind of prototypical craft brewery, because you don't have that back catalog to pull from that people remember during the glory days.
The good old days.
There's no like when everybody released 100 beers, there's none to pull from that time if you're like a brewery that opened in the last 3 years.
Yeah.
That could work for you in different ways too. Yeah. I'm not saying.
And it's funny, like I'm thinking of breweries that are sitting on a gold mine that way, and of just having this back catalog of just amazing beers, or beers that just resonate with people. And it is these beers that have been around, breweries that have been around for a while and been making a lot of really great, inventive seasonals. Do any breweries in your mind come to mind because there's like 2 that come to mind for me, but really one that just like jumps out of like, wow, they have a back catalog that they haven't even touched, but could start releasing things, and I think, could potentially be cool to bring this stuff back.
I mean, the first one's kind of feels too obvious to be one you're talking about, but I would have said Hill Farmstead.
Oh, okay.
With all, even just their Fear and Loathing, like, not the obvious ones, like not the ones that people are trading, but they just have an incredible lineup of other ones. That's one I was going to mention.
Yeah.
Give me one and I'll try
to
think
thinking.
Of the other. Give me the harder one and I'll try to get the easier one.
Well, I was thinking Three Floyds,
okay.
Just because they have just a history of lots and lots of seasonals. They can do, Brian Boru. I don't know. Do people still care about that stuff? I guess, or they could just do all these, old styles and then bring them back and see.
They just brought back War Mullet, which I don't think was one of the. That's not like a dreadnought permanent funeral.
Sure.
That's like kind of the next shelf down in terms of how popular it was. And I thought that was interesting. I'd love to try it again. And but first thing I thought of with that, it was like, you needed to be in before 2015 to care.
That's what I was thinking as I was talking to you about it. I was like, or maybe it's only old losers like me who would care about that. The music that came out when I was my senior in high school was the greatest music ever written. Doesn't everyone know that? Like, it reeks a little bit of that. You're right. Where, Sierra Nevada does. I mean, I guess maybe they transcend that among other things. Or maybe, Doug, nobody really does care about that old stuff.
It's possible. It's people with podcasts.
Yeah, right. Who have to fill an hour each. Let's fill our glasses, and then there was some info, some data that came out, some market data that I wanted to pick your brain about and kind of see how you felt about some of the increases and decreases across the board. It wasn't like I'll give you a little hint. It isn't like last week when I was talking about the one from 9 years ago, and the BA is just talking about explosive growth, every quarter after quarter. But still some interesting stuff and some growth. But we'll talk about that when we come back with the Beer Temple podcast. And we're back with the Beer Temple podcast. I am your host, Chris Quinn. I am joined by Doug Veliky, the beer cruncher, the beer aficionado, Nostra Douglas. Do you have any more nom de beers, or is that it? 3's a lot.
That's it.
Okay.
We're good there.
That's pretty good. It's pretty good. So we're going to get a little bit into beer cruncher territory now. So IRI, which you just told me, it's Circana now.
Yeah, they did some kind of rebrand. I don't know why.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess the data told them to, I suppose. So they're one of the big, them and Nielsen, I think, are the two big kind of data, Scantron, industry.
Market research.
Yeah, market research, yeah. And, they put out stuff, throughout the year, all the time. You were talking about, I think, some results recently on online about how import lagers are ascendant, or just import beers have kind of have surpassed the premium lager category, and this is specifically information about craft, and again, things were down. So craft dollars were down 5.5% in the last 4 weeks. Also, 23 of the top 30 craft were in decline. But something that I noticed that was just interesting to me, and I wanted to see if it was interesting to you, if you had any takes on it, was it said that craft by dollars had gotten worse over the last 4-week period. So it was down 5.5%, accelerating from down 3% in the previous period. Meanwhile, volume improved. It was still down. It was down 1.7%, but that had been down almost 5% in the previous 4-week period. So, despite dollar sales being worse, volume sales had gotten better. So they're kind of trending in two different directions. And you would think, just at first glance, that those things should be kind of lockstep. As volume goes down, dollars go down. As dollars go down, volume goes down. But they're not. They're going in different directions. And this is specifically for craft, right? And this, so Circana or Brewbound, and again, thanks to Brewbound for giving the podcast access to their subscribed site. And so Brewbound was saying the opposing performance between dollar sales and volume is at least somewhat due to a segment-wide decline in the average price per case in the last 4 weeks. And that's kind of what I found interesting, and I have some thoughts about it, but I wanted to hear your thoughts. Do you have any thoughts around why the average price per case would be going down over the last month?
Yes.
When everything else seems to be getting more expensive.
So coming out of COVID, call it 2022 leading into 2023, that's when tons of price increases were happening. All the costs on the brewery side were going up. That doesn't mean craft breweries were dying to increase their prices, because they were very much worried that would tank their sales if they did.
Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
Any brewery working with a distributor was talking to their partner and saying, we need to go up in price because our costs are going up. And so there was just kind of a mutual need to do it, pushed for by many distributors. So long story short, breweries started selling their beer for more and forcing a, call it 6-pack, to go up an extra $1 on the shelf as a result. And each kind of retailer, distributor, and brewery all make a little bit extra from it to try to offset all or a portion of the increasing cost of malt, transportation costs, everything like that, employees. And so there were a lot of big price increases. So there was a period where volume was naturally going down because everything was more expensive. The $10 6-pack was now $11. The $11 one was now $12, and so on. So there was a point where dollars looked okay, maybe even up a little bit.
Yep.
But volume was down because people weren't immediately changing their buying habits, seeing this extra $1 or $2 on the shelf.
And this is about 18 months ago, you're saying? Yeah, I remember that. Yep.
So that was a big trend, and now we're at a point where it's setting in and people are making changes to their habits. There's other a lot of competing beverages. There's, everything that's been talked about, craft beer enthusiasm, maybe not quite where it once was, not at a growing clip right now. But for many different reasons, but price being a big one of them, volume has slowly been degrading because of price. So now breweries are sitting there with these higher prices, and they are, in many ways, shapes, and forms, doing more deals. They're basically saying, we need to get volume up. We didn't really need to go that far up in price. We can basically afford to run some kind of volume deal, buy 10 cases, get this. There's all these different ways where this can happen, but basically ways to help fund, basically giving a little back to get your price a little bit lower for a special of some kind. So discounting. There is a lot more discounting happening that's kind of taking things, especially at the big chain store level, bringing price back down a little bit, maybe not all the way back to where it was in, let's say, 2019, what prices were, but there's a little bit of give back now in hopes of improving volume. And like you said, volume is going up. Prices are now, Doug Wire prices coming down. The answer, I think, is because they're discounting to increase volume, and I think it's working. This is all at the big levels. This isn't at the bottle shop level that these kind of things typically happen unless you're Rothaus offering a pallet deal to the beer temple. It's generally not going to be.
We didn't get a deal, I don't think.
Okay.
No. And we should. What are you talking about? Yeah, so then on these big deals, when these big deals are offered to the giant chains, and these would be presumably, across multiple stores and stuff like that. So giant deals where allowed.
Every state has different things you can and can't do.
Yeah, and most find ways to do it anyway. But do you think that those deals do they serve to get a bigger buy and a bigger share of shelf space and maybe increase velocity at the regular price? Or do you think that those price savings are passed on most of the time, we'll say, to the consumer when those deals start happening?
Yeah, I think they go to the consumer.
Okay.
I thought you were going to ask if that consumer is going to then buy that same beer when it's back at its regular price.
Okay.
Because that, I'd say, maybe not. Maybe there's always something on sale. And it just depends. There's people that are just going to buy whatever is $16.99 instead of $19.99 because there's always something at the big, wine and liquor superstore that's on that kind of deal. But then there's other people that just have their beer, and whether it's $16.99 or $19.99, they're just buying it. Then that $3 isn't going to change. They just want that beer.
So it goes on sale. So the beer goes on sale when it's discounted for those deals. Okay. And they're not just saying, all right, I'll put up more up front, but I'll just take a larger margin and I'll be able to, because that happens too sometimes. I mean, with wine, a lot of times that's, or other things that can kind of go slower. There's 3-case deals, 10-case deals, stuff like that you can decide what you want to do. Do you want to pass it on? Do you want to just, hold on to it? And then the cost of storing it is essentially, higher margin. But you're pretty confident. Okay, so then the other question I have is, do you think that it is solely discounting, or do you think could there be any element of different tiered pricing and the cheaper beers are starting to sell better for certain breweries, at least the ones that would move the needle here?
I think, I think that could contribute. It's hard to say how much,
right?
But I believe the discounting, when you combine it all, is really the answer.
Okay.
Because it would take a big shift from, if you're saying like going from Revolution pricing to I mean, even there really isn't much that's cheaper now. Like you
No,
think of like the regionals and the nationals, like they're all kind of within a hair of each other in price.
I guess what I meant was, so you have like how many different price tiers, and most breweries they have like tiers of pricing. So when they release a beer, they'll usually put it within one of these bands, one of these tiers. So obviously, like Deep Woods, I would presume is going to be tier however many you have, tier 5 or whatever it is, and then you're going to have wherever Anti-Hero would be maybe not the lowest, but maybe the second or third from the lowest, and then you have. So could it be that people are buying like further down the tier level? Is what I was curious at, but I think it would.
That would be assuming that the places that are collecting this data are selling high end stuff, the $16 4-packs, which they generally aren't. So that's what I mean about it being a pretty tight range of prices in the beers that are contributing to the big trends.
To these specific numbers. Nielsen IRI
it's a lot of breweries that are really, they're not the exact same price point, but they're like within a buck of each other that do almost all of the volume. Mm-hmm. This isn't getting the big, it couldn't like New York, like other half is sold in grocery stores in New York. So you would see other half if you got like a New York data set, but it's so small that it's not that kind of stuff. It's almost all of it's the same price. I think an alternative you could throw out there is you could say, are more people buying 12 packs? 12 packs are what tend to get a lot of this discounting, and that's giving people kind of, you don't see the 6 packs go down in price. You tend to see the 12. I even use that as my example just by habit, that you see a $19.99 craft 12 pack go down to $17.99 or $16.99. You don't see the $11.99 6-pack go down as much as you do, I think, the 12-pack, and that's because they want the volume play where they're getting to sell 12 beers, not 6.
Yeah.
So that there's already a discount built into a 12-pack. So if more people are shifting to those, again, because of pricing, because of discount, that could be a contributor as well. There's probably a few things going on, but it's all, I think, connected. Yeah,
it was... It's interesting. They were saying, 11 of the 23 brands, so 23 of the top 30 saw dollar declines. 11 of them were double digit, and 5 different brands in the top 30 that saw double digit declines were all New Belgium, and they were, I think, all Voodoo Rangers except for Fat Tire. So it was 4 Voodoo Rangers and 1 Fat Tire all saw double digit. And we're not talking about like 10.1. These were like 19.3, 19.7, 19.5, 29. Oh, shoot. That was Fat Tire. 29.9. So 30% decline. But you're right. These are the kind of the big players, because it was Lagunitas, Boston Beer, Leinenkugel, Goose, Sierra. So interesting. I mean, these. Do you think and this wasn't essentially what I was going to talk about, but I mean, a lot of those are. Do you think it's potentially the end of this discount hive booze fad that's been going on, or wave? I don't want to call it a fad necessarily, but a wave like this that everyone has been chasing for a couple of years, all the big guys anyway.
Do I think discounting is going to slow down? Is that what you're saying?
No. The fact that so many of the Voodoo Rangers and Little Something Something, which is also, that's a pretty boozy beer, and do you think that that's an indication that some of these, big fruited IPAs that are going after kind of a budget-conscious drinker, is that starting to fade, or is that not at all?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think enough of these handful of big players cannot possibly ignore New Belgium was doing, and so I think there's a lot more of them now. From the Oscar Blueses, the Lagunitas, they're all putting out 10% IPAs. So it could be the competitiveness of them. I'd be curious. I'm not guaranteeing this, but I'd be curious to look at all of that whole category of Imperial IPA, if that's actually down or if it's just New Belgium.
Right,
because
but
that's
New
really
Belgium,
short term. That's really short term, right? The New Belgium
4
being
weeks.
down. Okay.
But also, the Voodoo Ranger in that group that was down the least was down 19% by volume. So that was the one that was performing the best of the other ones.
I mean, it seems reasonable that they could have pushed that too far in terms of how many of those can be out in the wild at a time, that when you go from 2 Voodoo Rangers to 6 can be out there, that naturally they are going to go down because there's so many of them. That's why I'm like, I'd love to just look at brand Voodoo Ranger. There's ways to look at this data. I can't do it on my phone or anything, but to look at them so they're consolidated as one, and as Voodoo Ranger overall down in the last 4 weeks. It might be, but I'm curious of that, and if it's just like, did they stretch it beyond?
Yeah. I mean, it's they have 2 of the 3 largest brands by dollar, it says, and the Voodoo Ranger. So they're big. They're still giant. But so what I was curious is about, and when I was asking that question, is it people kind of drinking down the tier? Is it was it craft breweries trying to push these budget conscious beers, or these more these just cheaper beer, more affordable beers, and was it working? And
wasn't it like just them?
Who?
New Belgium. Like, I mean, I know a few have copied them, trying to chase what they've created.
No, I was going back to just the overall trend. I wasn't going.
Okay.
Sorry, I should have said. Aside from that, the fact that volume was improving, dollar sales were going down. Could it be because of so many breweries were, I don't know, maybe going the route of like the just trying to put out cheaper beer, and I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean, I think this lager trend of the putting out the craft version of the budget lager, which we've done, so many others have done. I think
it's kind of exactly what I was thinking of.
Yeah.
But
I think that's a very viable strategy. It's very hard to like catch the wave with it. That thing's got to become cool too. And how you do that, that's why we're doing Pitchfork and things like that, and making those kind of investment things that don't pay for themselves right away. There's not an immediate ROI on it. It's more of a bet that you're making. You do enough of these things that you expose it to enough people.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
So is in the way that some people were chasing Voodoo Ranger, is Montucky really the North Star for that? Is that what people are chasing? Or is it more just category wide for those kind of, pale, like premium lager-esque craft lagers?
I don't want to give Montucky too much credit, more credit than I think they deserve, because they're not that big.
Mm-hmm.
They're like the equivalent of about a 50th biggest brewery in the country, but
with one brand.
With one brand, but across almost the whole country. So it's kind of been shot out there and spread wide and far. And but I do think people are absolutely leaning on the whole concept of it, for sure. But I don't think it itself was this rocket ship or anything. I don't think they were making money. Their contract brewing that beer, I don't think the company was a profitable company. I think they were creating a brand with an exit strategy, and I think they did a good job of it.
Yeah.
Do you know where Montana ranks of all the states that they distribute Montucky cold snacks in? I think they're in like 36 states, and I checked, and I'll confirm this by the end of the pod because I have it on my phone, but it's not in the top 20 of this Montana brand in terms of where it sells. Montana, so it's just this like.
Well, it's also just how many people are there to drink in Montana, I suppose. But yeah.
So, but yes, this idea of a kind of fun, cheap, or cheaper lager is
and weird, retro-y, and very kind of But they just sold. They sold the Gallo wine. Interesting move, I think.
Wine and spirits. They're like the second or third biggest spirits company as well.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But now they're in beer. Is this their first beer acquisition? Yeah. Yeah, of all of them,
So I think I'm not that like overly impressed with how big Montucky got. I don't think it's that big. It's just like not. It's around as big as Jack's Abbey. Mm-hmm. People talk about Montucky like it's this juggernaut. It's about the same size as Jack's Abbey in Boston. And I love Jack's Abbey. I'm just saying it's not this like Lagunitas selling or something like that.
No.
I mean, it's
not
it's
like
it's like 40 to 50,000 barrels. That's what Montucky is spread over the whole country.
Sure,
it's just not that.
And it's not like White Claw was when it just kind of how it just kind of blew
it sounds like I'm speaking ill of it. I think it was like a genius purchase because Barstool Sports, a huge media phenomenon, has a very large, loyal following of 20-somethings, 30-somethings. And what they've done to High Noon through Dave Portnoy, through Like 'em or Hate 'em, through Barstool Sports in general, what they've done to High Noon to make that the top canned cocktail, spirit-based cocktail brand, you give them Montucky, they probably would love a beer to partnership. You give them Montucky, you couldn't imagine a more perfect fit. It just seems like they could take that 50,000 barrels or whatever it is that Montucky sold last year. That to me could be 1 million barrels if you do it the right way with Barstool Sports and all that. And to me, that doesn't make me want to buy it necessarily, but it's fascinating as someone who loves following a strategy like this. Like it just seems like the perfect fit.
Yeah. I could not agree more. I bet you they would love to have a beer, and they are tastemakers like no others. That Barstool Sports and Dave Portnoy. I mean, that guy.
And their style and culture. You picture them, and you look at that can, and you're like, yep.
Yes.
Dead ringer. It's like it's perfect.
Yeah. I mean, more than High Noon, frankly.
Yeah.
I mean, High Noon was just the one that just they'd pay him. It looks like. And it's amazing, and I think it's really that it is amazing how the right influencers, and I mean this in a true sense, like a tastemaker,
it's like celebrity
right.
is almost about the
right, because it's not that word is used. No, this is like truly. Somebody who influences people into doing other things. I think they've lifted that entire segment up and made it okay for sports bros or whatever to drink that sort of stuff. Where before it was not seen as like cool or manly or something like that. It just those people drank beer or whatever it is, and for whatever reason, that's out the window. Young people are drinking, seltzers. Twisted tea is huge. It's amazing, and all it takes is just the right person to say, "Yeah, that's cool. Let's drink it," and then drink it, and then boom. And it does worry me a little bit because there is a little bit of acquired taste with beer. There is where. People have been drinking fruity seltzers for a long time. This one's just, spiked.
Yep.
So yeah, maybe Montucky Cold Snack. So I was going to ask you, like, which of the latest purchases do you think was the most significant? I thought the Montucky one was, but I'm guessing you did too. I mean, the other would be Anchor, which is
the Montucky is the most fascinating to me. Like that was it was always clearly built to sell to me. Like when I would combine the fact that I knew that this was a Montana brand, supposedly brewed in Wisconsin, and when I would see it for $9.99 12 packs, and I just know what it costs to make even the cheapest possible lager, and then to have to pay someone else to do it, I know that there's no money there. That's where you come in with money and you spend it.
And they outsourced everything, even outsourced the sales teams and stuff like that. Like that was all third party.
So you were coming to the table with a lot of cash, and you were building up sales until you don't have any more money or get it to a point where there's a buyer. And that's like just clearly what the plan was all along, and it worked. And I think they did a good job of it. But again, I think people think it's bigger than it is. I think for some reason craft people know it much more so. It's not that big, but I think it's going to be massive. I think it's going to 20x in size over, I don't know how long, 5 years. I think it could get gigantic.
Now you're putting on your Nostra Douglas hat.
Yeah.
That's the serious one. All right.
If I could bet on a multiple, I'd bet on Montucky Cold Snacks to multiply from its current size bigger than any other beer brand, I think.
Yeah, I mean...
multiple, not...
Yeah. I mean, because it would have to, right? I mean, with someone the size of Gallo buying it, their idea is to put it through their channels and just put it everywhere.
Yep.
Just put it everywhere. And then see. Like, so the pipe fill, I think, is where that multiple comes in, and then how long does it take or not? But I think in my mind that growth is going to happen, and then is it sustainable or does it just kind of fizzle out? Because someone like Gallo has the power to.
Well, they're not looking to exit.
No. When I say pipe fill, but they're going to push it.
Yeah, but they're not looking to boom splat either. Like,
no.
I'm not saying they're going to be like Yingling and open one state a decade.
No.
For each century, so that their family always has more states to, which is props to them.
I mean, talk about someone who is just counter to everybody else, but also winning for for the past 3 decades.
The most patient brewery in the country is Yingling.
Yeah, it's amazing.
They give every generation more states to move into someday.
Right? No, I don't think we're saying either of that. The kind of like, the pump it up and pump and dump or the, obviously not the Yingling, but I mean, to Gallo, do you think there's any reason? I don't think there's any reason for them to simply double it. I mean, they're not going to just want to double it. I mean, what's the point? They would have to restrain themselves to do that. They're like, okay, we're opening up to the network, to our network, and that necessitates we go to 200,000 barrels at least, I would think.
But to me, they wouldn't want to do that the way it's currently done, which is paying La Crosse, Wisconsin contract brewer, I think it's made at City Beverage maybe, to make it. I'd want to bring that production in-house. They don't own a brewery. So at some point, I think you'd want to capture all of that margin and not contract brew it. If you're a company the size of Gallo, you want to own the production. So I think at some point... I
know a giant brewery that's for sale.
You stole my punchline, but yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
So you're thinking your Montucky Cold Stack from made in Illinois.
They might want to... I don't know if they're done.
So Gallo makes High Noon as well?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Because now Montucky Cold Stacks is the same owner as High Noon, so Dave Portnoy.
Was High Noon always Gallo? Or they purchased them too? Or no, that's an organic? Okay, or someone. Okay, interesting. All right. Well then, yeah. Totally.
So,
then
same
100%.
family. It's all in the family. So that's why Portnoy came to mind first. Not because you could, because he built them their biggest brand.
Right.
So you say, how about a beer as well? Bada bing.
Interesting. Yeah, it's amazing. I think I've said it before on this show, but the buyer for Foxtrot was talking to me one time about how High Noon was just really floundering, and they were going to cut it from their set across all Foxtrots, and then they got that sponsorship deal, and it was just boom, like just like a rocket ship. So it's amazing. It's nobody cared about it too. So yeah, if Gallo is High Noon, I should have known that. I didn't. Interesting.
I want to credit a guy named Andrew who actually works in the marketing team at New Belgium, and he has a fun Twitter account. He's not posting every day or anything like that, but he's been posting this chart maybe like once a month or so, and the chart shows High Noon and Cutwater spirit canned cocktails, how much dollars they're gaining over a given period of time, and how much the hard seltzer category is losing over that same period of time. And the chart is the funniest thing to look at, because every time period he picks, you just see $1 million of gains for High Noon plus Cutwater, and like within a few percent, the exact same amount of loss to hard seltzer. And he's basically just saying hard seltzer is down because of two things, High Noon and Cutwater, and that's it. There's other noise out there, sure, but you can simplify it down to this one thing. People are moving from hard seltzer to High Noon and Cutwater. That's it. That's the story. And the graph, he shares it on Twitter. It's very funny to look at.
Now, there's a question: is why are people moving to those two things? Why are they going from the fermentation-based fruited seltzer to the distillate, like RTD? Why do you think that is? Do they taste better?
They must think they do. And I think High Noons are gross. I've never had a Cutwater cocktail.
I haven't had a Cutwater since they've sold.
And trust me, I love a margarita. I love different kinds of cocktails, but I do not like those.
No, I don't like. I had one, or I think I've had one High Noon ever, and it was like the summer of the rocket ship, and I was in Boston, and they were everywhere. And then I came back here, and I was like, yo, this High Noon stuff is like, people are drinking it like crazy, which would make sense with Barstool, too, because it's like, the talk about like where the biggest zealots are. And I had it, and sure, it's great. Okay, good. This one's got real fruit juice in it, or has juice in it, it says. I don't know, like, whatever. Can I have that Trumer, please? But it's 100%. Yeah, it's they're just taking it from them. But for craft brewers, that's a problem, because it's a lot harder to compete with that type of beverage with a Cutwater or a High Noon than it is with a White Claw. Not that I think that...
It's also impossible to compete with a kind of celebrity endorser who has a national following when you're this local brand that's sold in 1 or 5 states.
Sure.
One, your home state and maybe your neighboring states. Like, nothing is going to ever have that like cool factor of compared to competitors that have a face like that, which kind of stinks.
Right. For sure. I've got some stuff for... I don't know who this is for. Is this for the Beer Cruncher? This is for, I guess, the beer aficionado.
Oh.
Okay. So here's just some questions I'm going to throw at you.
Is it about memes?
No, it's not. I can maybe come up with some memes. So does local still matter?
I think it matters more than ever.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why is that? Why more than ever specifically? Not that just that it still matters, but why more than ever?
Because I think any edge is crucial now in the world. We're in the most like competitive space imaginable. So having a place that's somewhere that people can also go to, have been to, taken a tour of once, when they have friends come into town, be a place you'd be like, oh, we got to go to my favorite brewery here. We're going to go here and hang out. Having that like presence that's a little more than just the six pack on the shelf, but being the place you've been to and have that extra connection to, I think is just like a leg up on anything not local. And I think if you don't have that, you better have like a long history. You better have been like in Chicago. If you want to be an out of market brand here and do really, really well, you better have been here pre 2013. I think.
Okay, so like just being a name that they haven't heard of doesn't like strike up any interest. So like, what about if you're a new local brewery, like that they've never been to? Like, how do you kind of it doesn't matter then, like because in that case you're talking about they know you, they've been there, but that's kind of it could also be, they're having a Revolution beer in another state, but they're like, oh, I've been there. I want to have it here because I really liked it. So that's like a familiarity, and the ability to be familiar with it is probably easier if you are within a vicinity. But like, let's say it's a new brewery, 2 new taps come on at a bar, one is local, one isn't, and somebody says, what are these 2? I've never seen them before. So now you're already supposing a lot, right? Now somebody has already asked and been interested, and the bartender says, oh, this is, these guys just opened in, Pilsen, and these guys are from, they're from Texas. It's a new beer from Texas that we brought in. I didn't want it to be. I wanted it to be a state that had some intrigue to it for some reason.
It's tricky because you're combining new and local, and those are 2 variables, and you're putting them both together. Versus, so I immediately, when you said local matter, I'm not thinking of brand new plus local.
Okay.
So which you want to Is that fair? Like
I guess I'm just trying to think of like. Is there now some element of like it being exotic or new and not from here? And can that also be seen as, cool? Like, there's, I don't know, lots of things that aren't produced locally and are kind of seen as somewhat interesting as a result. I wonder if.
I definitely think new has its limits. I think new still works, but new also is not new very, very quickly.
Sure.
And so a lot of things that are new also need to be replaced by, you end up in the Ponzi scheme of you need something else new quickly. Talk about a 6 months, 6 months, you need a 1 month type thing, and that can be a hell to live in that I've lived in.
Right.
of feeding that beast.
Right.
So I think that is absolutely dying down in a big way. But there's, of course, exceptions when something is.
So that necessitates that you have a flagship then, really, or yeah. So you think that flagship is more important than ever, right?
Yeah.
Okay. That I think I can get behind a little bit more. I have not made up my mind. I'm not even sure I'm leaning. I just ask questions first, and it's like, does local matter anymore? I have a very, small set to go off of, but I definitely have people say like, oh, where are they from? Oh, where's Oxbow from? They're from Maine. Oh, like I get a little bit of that versus they're from they're local. They're from Chicago. Oh, okay, cool. I just kind of taken note of that. Like, oh, that's interesting. The fact that they aren't local to this person. That's been multiplied by whatever, but maybe I'm predisposed to kind of listen for that now. Just curious.
Is there a trimming down of the non-local that had no business being here? You know how there's a wave of that.
That's kind of where I'm getting at. Yeah. Is it time? They've left, and now some of them are starting to come back in because I think as times get tough, people are looking for distribution again, and as they start to come back in. I don't know. Is there a market? Because I think just maybe still going on right now, but certainly before right now, if you weren't local, and boy, oh boy, I mean, good luck. Unless you were going to have representation like you were local, like a full-time rep who's just like in here as often as any other person.
I can't imagine being a new from multiple states away, being a new brewery in Chicago that is selling 4-packs of 16-ounce cans with a label on them. I don't care how great the artwork or how just like eye-catching it is. I couldn't imagine trying to start from ground zero on that right now. Maybe they don't even have to be a few states away, just not from right here. Just someone even from Milwaukee coming down that is kind of newish and putting their beer, just another one of those. Like I don't know where you put it.
Right.
And I don't know who's picking that up. And nothing against this fictitious brewery I'm inventing, but just like pick it. Like I just don't know how you stand out there. So like I'm not saying you're asking exactly this, but if there's there's been a pullback, I think slower than we've been talking about people going back to nostalgia favorites since 2020. That's been probably talked about on the show off and on. And I think it's just happened slower. Like there was definitely a burst of it. And then I think there's been a nice slow like permanency of it happening as well. Mm-hmm. Like you think about Half Acre making the beer with Sierra Nevada celebrating Daisy Cutter. You talk about the importance of flagships, and I love flagships because they're the funnest thing to me to riff off of versus creating this equivalent of a riff that's something completely new and doesn't have like a history to build onto. So like if Half Acre had just made a beer with Sierra Nevada that had no tie-in to Daisy Cutter, but was instead of being for Daisy Cutter's anniversary, let's pretend it was Half Acre's 15th anniversary, mm-hmm. and they made a beer with Half Acre that was just called something brand new, looked brand new and looked like nothing else. I feel like that wouldn't sell like half as much as what a Daisy Cutter Select would in partnership with Sierra Nevada, like that, like tie to that history, that story. See, it just seems so important versus it being something where you're starting from zero and understanding what it is versus, oh, Daisy Cutter Select. Oh, they did that with Sierra Nevada. Okay, it's just like you're there, you're in. Like you don't need any convincing from that.
Very, very interesting because with that would be pretty interesting to find out because they just did a Firestone Walker Pils collaboration that was made by Firestone Walker, but it was available here. I'd be curious to.
I didn't know it was available here.
Yeah, it was in package and in draft. I'd just be curious to see like how each of those did and how they came together. Because I tend to think, if you tie it into Daisy Cutter, people are. I mean, especially something the size of Daisy Cutter, that it would work. Here's a question that I have with Summerfest, summertime, and lagers being so big. Obviously, we're seeing tons of pale lagers coming out this summer. But two, to me, of the biggest summer styles are classic wheat beers, the German wheat and the Belgian wheat. So the wit and the hef. And both of those just seem to be just relatively low interest from the brewers. Why do you think that brewers are not interested in wheat beers of that type? So there will be like maybe a wheat ale or something like that, like a hoppy wheat or something like that. But like, why does nobody make a hef? I think less than people. It seems to be less than it takes up less space than it used to, and wit as well. I mean, it seems like so many breweries used to make wits. Why? Do you think there's a reason why those two are just not? People aren't trying to make them this time of year.
Hot take?
Yes, please.
I think those are, I don't have a better term for this, and I feel comfortable using it because I am one. I think those are like mom and dad beer styles. Those are like that's like the style you might get a case of at Costco. It's the kind of beer you buy at the grocery store. And I think they do exist. I mean, we make one, Sun Crusher. It's out from April to
But I wouldn't
August.
say that. But that's a hoppy wheat. That's a great beer. But that's not a classic German Pils, Czech Dark Lager, German Hefeweizen, Belgian Wit. I think these are. I'm talking about these like.
You're talking about small breweries then making one-offs, like.
Or a summer seasonal, or anything. Like, why aren't people going after this in a time where people seem to be looking for classic styles to try to reinvigorate, and there's a lot even of like branching out. So there's a lot of Italian Pils. There's a lot of Pilsners that are coming out right now. There's a lot of other type of pale lagers. There's a lot of dark lagers. There's a lot of all this stuff. It are just wheat beers. Just they're not there. They're not cool. They're not. Yeah, they're mom and dad beers.
I mean, they're huge. I mean, it's a top 4 selling craft beer style, but it to me, it's not the bottle shop crowd. I don't think they're so much buying that. So are you struggling over the availability of these to bring in? Or a lack of interest from consumers, where even if they were, you'd feel
lack of availability. Lack of availability. Like if I said wit's a little bit easier because there's some big national brands. I could say we want to bring in. Obviously, there's Allagash White, but then if it's like, well, we don't want to do that one. Well, I guess we could do then, a White Rascal, and then after that, you're like, I don't know. Hitachino White, like, I mean, you really have to start, but there's a few. But then for hef, if you want to keep it domestic, you have Dovetail. Then what's your next option? Like, I don't know, man. Like, you'd have to really think about it. And it's like, for a style as I don't know, classic as a hef, I'm just curious. I'm just curious why nobody is trying, it seems like.
A good answer.
Yeah, nobody seems to think it's worth a go. Maybe, and I'm guessing it's not that hard to make.
I feel like I heard a lot of this. I want to say 2.5 years ago. Let's put ourselves in the beginning of 2022, and Rev always made a brew pub beer called El Jefe, and I kind of make our schedule even for our specialty one-offs, and I said, let's do 4 packs of 16-ounce cans of El Jefe, and let's release it in mid-June, exactly when you want a Hefeweizen. We made a really fun label, one of my favorite labels we've ever made, and it was like a German guy on an inner tube floating in a big, tall, hef glass, and it was just a really cool thing, and did not sell good. And we didn't make a ton of it, 50 barrels, which for us is pretty small, something like that, 50 to 100. And we struggled with it. And
it was good. I presume it was good.
Yeah, no, I loved it. No complaints on quality of the beer. And even a beer like that of that size is a one and done anyway. That's not a beer people are repeat buying for the summer. You pick that up once. All you really need for that beer to disappear is a decent amount of people to just grab a 4-pack and then it's gone. It's just like the nature of the kind of series that we put it into. And we struggled to move one batch of that, and I was told, not again.
Yeah.
We also have Sun Crusher, which is, again, not the same, but could appeal to the same kind of occasion a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay. Well, I don't know either. I'm not saying it's good or bad, but it seems like that one always gets floated around as having some sort of potential or someone to be able to riff off of it or something. Still waiting to see what a big old super American hopped hef would be like. I'd be curious. All right. How much time? What do we got, Serge? Okay. All right. We don't have much time. Let me ask you then one more question. I have to ask you a social media question before we get out of here. So let me. Well, actually, hold on. Let's pause. Let me think about this because there's also some news we want to talk about. Let's take another break, and then we'll come back. Okay, so there's one last thing that we wanted to talk about, and that is a charity that you've been working with for a while, with Lurie's Children's Hospital. How long have you been working with them?
Since 2019, we've been doing fundraising. My son had a surgery there in 2016, and then 2019 is when we started partnering with them for different initiatives.
To amazing effect. And you came to Mike and I with an idea, and I thought it was cool. So do you want to present your latest idea?
Yeah, so something my wife and I have been working on for a few years now is that we've been helping the hospital fund a new program called the Lurie Try Without Anesthesia program for kids getting an MRI for a wide variety of reasons. The ability to go through that, what can be like an hour-long scan, to be able to do that without being sedated has incredible benefits for a kid's health, for the stress that occurs on the family when they have to get sedated to do that. And they've started a program and brought in the specialists called Child Life Specialists into this medical imaging group that helps kids go through these procedures by spending the hours it takes with the family to get the kid to the point where they can make it through that procedure where they have to lay perfectly still without being sedated. So very challenging, but we've basically been helping the hospital fund the additional positions it would take to do this. So we set a lofty goal, and Chris and Mike have been generous enough to partner with me on a silent auction that I'm going to run on my Instagram feed beginning July 15th. And the idea of this came from just being a longtime listener and participant of the Beer Temple Insiders Roundtable and now the Beer Temple podcast, and listening to all the fun letters that folks write in and people that message me after the fact and my DMs and ask questions and just I can tell are excited listeners of the podcast. I thought, how cool would it be if we created the opportunity to be an insider for an evening? And what I mean by that is we're going to run a silent auction where the high bidder will that their winning bid will be a donation to Lurie Children's Hospital, specifically to go to this Try Without Anesthesia MRI program, and you will have the chance to agree on a mutually agreeable date with Chris and Mike to come on the podcast, and you will be able to list a kind of dream guest or two, ideally someone who's been on the pod before. We'll do our best to get one of your top choices to come on as well, and then you can work with Chris and Mike on an agenda of a few topics to get through on the pod. Those can be like whatever the latest news is that week, or it could be some kind of evergreen topic that's always been on your mind that you think fits the podcast. Chris and Mike will, of course, have like the first right of, I guess, veto power over that, just to make sure it's appropriate. But they're very agreeable, and I think you'll come up with something fun.
Yeah, or even a goofy topic. You want to do Jeopardy with Doug and somebody else? That's you've always wanted to hear that? Go for it. Let us know.
So you can show up a little bit early, hang out in the quote-unquote green room, have a beer, and then hang around for the post-show banter, and just be a part of the coming together of an episode, be a special guest on it, and help us make this happen and raise some money for a great cause. So July 15th, I will make a post on my Instagram account, which is Beer Aficionado, and then I run these for 2 days. That's where you just place a bid in the comments. I pin the highest bid. If somebody outbids you, I comment underneath yours and say you've been outbid. And then the highest bidder at the end of the 48 hours is crowned the future newest insider of the Beer Temple podcast.
Yep, that's what we do. You get a crown. So every guest gets a crown, so you will be officially crowned. And if it's not reasonable for you to make it in person, we'll find a way for you to join virtually as well. And get creative. Think about what you would want the show to be about, and who you want to do it with. So sounds like fun.
This is not the first time Chris or Mike have helped. Chris has donated a special lambic tasting once. Mike donated the chance to brew a collaboration beer with his Was. So thank you both yet again for helping me kind of create these fun experiences that money can't buy.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for thinking of us. It's our pleasure. And outside of that, thanks for coming on the show. And let me just kind of throw random questions at you. Is there any questions you have before we get out of here, or anything that you are dying to talk about, Doug? I know that when we get off, you're just like, I just couldn't bring myself to ask this question. But
no, I'd say I've been putting a lot of work into my Substack blog. I've been writing on my blog for like 9 years now. It's hard to believe. But I've moved it to Substack about 1.5 years ago, and have been writing much shorter and more regularly on that. So haven't plugged this in years, I don't think. But if you want to follow me on there, it's beercrunchers.substack.com. And just try to keep it fun, talking about things on my mind, things that I think are interesting around the strategy and business of beer and data behind it. So if you want to follow me on there,
9 years.
I appreciate it.
My goodness.
I believe it.
That's crazy. That's as old as this show.
Mm-hmm.
It's wild. Well, good for you. It's crazy. Time flies. All right. Well, thank you for coming on, Doug. And to everyone else, we will talk to you next week. Remember, you can shoot us emails at insiders at craftbeertemple.com, and we will see you next time. So long.
Remember, this is what we wanted. Remember, this is what we said. To never be heard, seen from again. Remember, this is what we wanted.